What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Nicole, your hostess with the mostess, and we are here today to make another pattern. Now, I had this idea a few weeks ago where I was like, man, it's been a long time since I put out my first pattern. I wonder if I should do another video on that. And then I had the idea that I could like work through my entire catalog from the beginning until now. And so that's what we're doing. That's what we're starting today. This little mini series of SewGnar patterns. We're kicking it back to 2017, 2018. I don't remember when the first one I put out was. One of those 2 years. So it's been a long time since I've done a construction video, just a straight up construction video for the BiFold Wallet. I do dabble in it on my lives. People, you get to see me batch sewing it, but it's been a long time since I did a video just straight up for the BiFold Wallet. So that's what we're doing today. This is perfect for people who are just starting with cork, or if you want to test out on raw self-healing edge textiles. So like vinyl, leather, anything like that, anything that does not fray, you can use to make this wallet. But it will not work for cottons, wovens, anything like that. It has to be something that will not fray and something that kind of has its own structure. Now you can get funky with it. You can make alternating color pockets. You can change up the cash slot. You can have two. I mean, you can make every single piece a different color. You can really go wild on it. You can also add RFID. When I add RFID, I put it in between these two outermost layers here. And this by far has been one of my biggest sellers throughout the years. Can't go wrong with a good BiFold wallet. So 6 card slots here, has 2 under pocket areas like hidden pockets, and then 1 cash slot area there. It's pretty straightforward. It's a lot of fun, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. Let's get all of our pieces cut out. I have 2 of the main panel, 1 cash slot, 2 credit card backs, and then 6 credit card slots here. I have already gone ahead and engraved my logo on one of my card slots. And you can see that I nipped the bottom edge of my cash slot. I like to do that just to reduce bulk later on in the construction process. You can use the pattern to cut out the pattern pieces. I have a cut list in there, or you can purchase the templates, and you'll see that the templates have squared off edges, but you can nip the corners to create a nice detail. I always do that on mine, or you can leave them straight across. Both wallets in the end look really fantastic, but to knit my corners, I'm going to use my corner template, and I will be using this 3/8 inch bevel. If you don't have a template, that's totally fine. You can just do this by measuring it on your cutting mat, no problem. So I'm going to start just by nipping all the corners of my card slots as well as my exteriors. All right, once you cut all of your corners, you can move all of this stuff to the side, and then we're going to glue our 2 outer panels together. If you want to use double stick tape, you can certainly do that. It's totally up to you. You just need to somehow connect these 2. I like to add glue or tape just so that nothing shifts around whenever the wallet is being sewn. And then also when the wallet is being used after the new client has it, I like to have these 2 panels stuck really well together, because when the wallet's being opened and closed a lot, I don't want there to be any air bubbles or anything that happens in between these 2 panels. So I find that adhering them together early on just really helps alleviate all of that. Okay, so we're just going to glue these, lining up our edges. Great, so now we're gonna go to the machine and we're going to top stitch. Now you absolutely have to top stitch these 2 together just across the top edge here, and then optional top stitching, which I like to do. I think that it looks nice and it's just an extra detail that, you know, elevates the final look. I'm going to take all my card slots and top stitch across each top edge. And then on my card slot or my cash pocket, I'm going to top stitch just across the bottom down in through there. I have a size 18 needle. I am using Tech 70 thread Amon from wawak, and a size 4 stitch length. All right, now I'm going to grab one of my card panel backs and 3 of my card slots, and we are going to create the card slot panels. So I'm going to take my first one. There are measurements provided in the pattern, and you can make lines on this panel if that helps you. I have made about, I don't know, freaking 4,000 of these, probably literally. And so I know where it goes. But so you're going to align your first card slot on that top line that you make and stitch just across the bottom. And you'll see here that you do not need to stitch across the entire panel. You just need enough stitching that is going to hold the credit card in place. So if you want to, you can go all the way across the bottom. It's just not necessary. I did about 2 inches here. Once you get that one in place, you're going to lay your second card slot on top of that and align it to the second line that you drew. Again, all of those measurements are in the pattern itself. They're also, if you get the acrylic templates, they're on the card slot panel back. There is openings where you can fit a pen through, and you could just easily mark on the panel to these marks. What am I trying to say? To those measurements. So now this top one, you just lay it on top, and what I'm really paying attention to is my bottom edges here. I want those to match up as much as possible. And then secondarily, is that a word? Secondary measurements that I'm looking, or second, whatever. Line up the bottoms. Do your best to get it on lining up the sides, but you can see here I've got a lot of discrepancy, and that's totally fine. We're just going to trim that down in the next step. So once you get your final pocket laid, we're going to stitch just down the right side, and you're going to see me, I'm going to mirror this bevel that I cut in here. I'm going to create that with my stitch line. So I'm just going to stitch down across all 3 of my card slots, and I'm going to add some back stitches here just to lock those in, and then I'm going to bevel down at this corner. All right, so this is what it should look like if you are doing bevels as well, and we will trim this down in the next step. Now we need to make our right side card slot panel, so you're going to grab the remaining card panel back and then your other card slots. Decide which one you want to be showing. So I have a little nick over here, which is totally fine. I'm just going to make that be one of my first card slots so that you don't see that. So I'm always very mindful to check this top card slot and make sure that there isn't anything wrong with it before I choose to use it on top. And then we're just going to repeat that process. Again, you can mark your lines to make this a little bit easier. Now, when you get to the last card slot, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to line up your bottom edge here and then do your best to get it aligned on the right and left side. And then toss a clip on it to hold everything in place. And then now we need to sew up the left side. So how we sewed the right side on this pocket, we're going to do the left side over here. So I'm going to start from the bottom. So I'm flipping the entire panel upside down. And then I will start from down here. Okay, we have all of our pieces prepped, and we will, what I like to do, it's totally optional, but I feel like it makes things easier. So these card panels, I like to glue the sides and the bottom down. So I'm going to take my Beacon Fabri-Tac and just apply a thin line of glue just down the whole side here and on each card slot, and then here along the bottom. And then apply some pressure to create that stick. And then I'd like to just lay like a ruler or something on top. Sometimes I'll put it in between my cutting mats. But this glue sets up really easily, or quickly, so it doesn't take much. And then repeat that on this other panel here. You see, I'm not doing a ton, just enough to hold everything in place. Get that lined up. And then now while these are setting up, what I want to do is finish off this main panel. So if you have any overhang, any excess, I like to trim it down now. So I will trim up this top section as well as the bottom section. See, I've got a little bit of overhang here. So we'll do that. I like to start by trimming up the top, so then I know whenever I'm measuring down that that's my final measurement. And then you want to be sure that you are holding your rotary blade vertical. So that way you're not going to get any weird beveling on any of your straight edges. So trimming this guy down. Now the sides I'm not super concerned with because we will be trimming those down after the final construction. It's more so just the top and the bottom. And I like to trim where I can see the overhang. So that way I'm not taking off an unnecessary amount. I'm just taking off enough to tidy the edges. All right, now let's trim up our card panels. I am going to use my stitch line as my measurement. So I'm going to line up on 1/8. So I'm lining up on my stitch line and then I'm going to cut 1/8 from that to trim this down. And then knit these corners in like so. If you find that it's not quite straight, then you can bring it over just a touch. It doesn't have to be exactly 1/8, but somewhere in that neighborhood. But you want them all to be flush. You want all of these card slots to be flush. I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to do the same thing over here. Now I formulated these card slots to be a little bit wider to give us some ease with trimming. So it's totally fine that we're doing this. It's not going to impede the cards at all. And what I like to do is now from this side edge measurement, I'm going to line it up 1/8 of an inch in from the original pattern piece size and then trim that off. And then let me grab my bevel edge here and then I will nip these corners so that they mirror the other corners. So this is what the completed card slot panel looks like. So it starts like this and then it gets trimmed up to look like that. So let's repeat that for this one. All right, once you get those done, we are going to grab your cash slot and then I need to attach these two to that. That's pretty simple with glue, but if you don't have glue, you can use double stick tape or clips. But I'm going to put the card slot panel that is finished on the right side goes on the left side of the cash slot. And the card slot panel that's finished on the left side goes on the right side of the card slot. And that is because this will create the secret pockets underneath each card slot panel. And then we're going to stitch up the sides whenever we finish the wallet. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue here. I'm not going down this entire panel because I nipped into this corner here. So you're just putting enough glue to lock everything in. And then I'm looking at this top edge here. That's what I'm really focusing on. And I am intentionally pulling it in a touch here on the side to give myself some runway to trim so that I can get everything nice and flush over here. So a scant 1/8 inch, 1/16 of an inch or so. You can even go up as much as an 1/8. It's totally up to you. But I do that on purpose so that way I can trim it down. And then same thing with this card slot panel here. So extra careful on aligning this top edge and then left a decent amount over here. So once the glue sets up, I'm going to trim and create these flush sides because once we stitch this, we'll be ready for the final construction. This wallet comes together so quick. So now that this is all set up, what I'm going to do is my rotary blade, I'm going to lay the blade right on the edge here of my card slot panel and use that as my trim line for my cash slot in the back. I'm not trimming into my card slots anymore. I just use my card slot as the guide, and then now all of my sides are flush and the same distance. So I'm gonna do the same thing up here. So it should look like that. Now we're going to go to the machine and we're gonna stitch all the way across this top edge here. So starting up at the bevel, come up, across, and then back down. And I always like to add some back stitches here just to lock that join in place, and then bring your exterior panel as well. All right, once you get that stitch, go ahead and trim all of your threads. We want a nice clean piece to attach to our exterior. So now you might notice Make sure you can see what I'm doing here. So you might notice that the completed interior panel is now a lot shorter than this exterior panel, but to the tune of, you know, it might change a little bit for you depending on where you placed your card slots on your cash slot, but you should have a decent gap over here or over here. You want it to be smaller. That's very intentional. So what I'm going to do, the way that I like to line this up, is I like to lay both pieces. First of all, you need to pick which side of your cork you want to be on the outside of the wallet. I know that I want this piece to be on the inside, so I'm going to lay that up against my card slots, and I'm going to stand it straight up on a flat surface so that my bottoms can align very nicely. I'm going to leave about 1/8 of an inch or so here of the main panel sticking out from behind my card panel. So I'm going to clip up here, add another one down here at the bottom, and then pick it up, and without letting it shift, I like to add a clip here as well. If you want to, you can add another one right here. It's totally up to you. Now we have the big gap over here, and that's what we want. What we're going to do is start sliding, so start closing the wallet, and what you'll see is that this interior panel starts to slide, and we want that. And so we're going to slide it over until we, again, have about 1/8 of an inch or so of the main panel sticking out from behind the card slots. We want to make sure that our bottom edge is lined up nicely. So sometimes it's a little easier to lay it down, and then you just grab this, start to close it, and it'll naturally slide toward the edge of the main panel. And once you get it to where you want it, go ahead and add your clips. I always like to have a couple clips here right at this join area, just so that nothing gets cattywampus once we get closer to that edge. Now you're going to notice that there's a big bulge right here. There's a bubble, and we want that bubble. What that is going to do is give us space to ease the card slots and the cash panel to lay nicely when the wallet is closed. If there's no bubble here, what's going to happen when you close the wallet, this interior section right here is going to bubble and fold on itself, or not bubble, but it's going to fold in on itself, and it's not going to lay correctly, especially when there's money in it. So if you don't have that bubble, you need to fix your panel. So once you get it all clipped and it looks like this, we're going to stitch. I'm going to start over here, top right. I'm going to backstitch very well, and I'm going to come down across the bottom. I'm going to add a lot of back stitches right here again. And then when I'm sewing, when you're sewing through this bubble, what's going to happen is you're going to get off of this card slot panel. You're going to get about midway through this bubble, and what's going to happen is you're not going to really be able to see anymore because this is going to be standing up. So once we get there, what we're going to do is with our needle down, we're going to lift up our presser foot, and we're going to just shift the wallet like so. And it's like a better in practice situation. So if it doesn't make sense now, whenever we're sewing, you'll see what I mean. But once we lift our presser foot, the wallet will naturally lay down, and then we can just continue sewing just like normal. We will come back or finish the bottom seam and then come up the side here. So add some back stitches. I'm stitching across the bottom, slowly, 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 getting right to the center. And then I'm going to lift my presser foot and just gently shift the wallet toward me. And then you just continue sewing. The last thing that we need to do in order to finish this wallet is trim up our sides. And now we're going to trim off this excess of the main panel the same way that we trimmed off the cash panel from behind the card slots. So just hold your rotary blade vertical and lay the blade right on the edge of your cash and card slots and use that as your cut line. And what you should have is a nice flush flat edge. It's really hard to see when I'm filming, so I really have to depend on the edge to be my guide. This one I need to trim down a little bit more because I couldn't see what I was doing. But last thing, this is totally optional. You can come back through, and I like to burn all of my threads. Now, if you're using cotton thread, it's not going to burn, but you want to trim down all of your threads really nicely and then seal your edges if you want to. I like to use Mod Podge to do that, or you can use one coat of base coat. You can use glue. It's totally up to you what you want to seal it with. I do recommend sealing it because these smaller projects, these wallets, they're being used constantly. So there's friction on the edge all the time. And what happens is it'll cause, see how if you agitate the cork enough, it's going to put off these little hairs. And so if you seal the edges, that doesn't happen. So I highly suggest sealing the edges, and it only takes a couple more minutes, and it really helps elevate. And that way, if you're starting to sell these, whenever you see them out in the wild, they don't come out looking like Yetis. I have seen so many wallets that I've made several years ago before I started to seal the edges, and they're just so hairy. And I always grab the wallet from the person and I trim it and singe all the edges again. But again, totally, it's optional, but highly suggested. Hope y'all enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to hit like, hit all the buttons. Like, subscribe, share, go crazy. Make my day. I will see you back here soon for the next pattern in my catalog. What could it be?